Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. In this tutorial, I wanted to go over this cool kind of cyberpunk-esque, cyber neon style layer style that I created while I was working on my new presets. So with everything in design, you want something that's going to kind of tie into the overall look and feel of your project and what you're going for. Now, in this case, I've been working on these presets that involve lots of bright neon lights and some kind of interesting moody tones, and I wanted to come up with a title or a layer style that reflected this, and this is what I came up with. And I thought it was pretty cool, and I wanted to share with you guys how I built it, because it's not just a layer style, it's got a lot more to it, as you can see here on the right side. So what we're going to do is jump right into it. I've just got a blank document here with our cyber font. Now, first step, what you're going to do is come over to our beautiful dafont.com, and we're going to just type in cyber, and we're going to download some of these fonts. So let's see if they come up right away here. Looks like nope. Okay, so I'm just going to show you really quickly the ones that I downloaded, so you can just type them into the search bar up at the top here, but you can really download any font that you want this to work on. So I'm just going to drag this font over here, double click on our font, and that will highlight it. And if we come up to the top here, so I've got Cyberpunk, literally called Cyberpunk, and Cyberway Riders that I thought was pretty cool too. So for this tutorial, we can use Cyberpunk, but for this font here, this was Cyberway Riders. So we're going to do it with this one here. This one has some cool kind of edges going on. So I just made it bigger there, just Control T, and you can control the size however you would like of your font. And we're just going to open up our character, because I would like to adjust the spacing here. Now, if you don't have this, you can come up to a window, come down to character, click on that, and it will open up the text character. So this gives you a bunch of control over your font that is otherwise not given within the actual font itself. So you can do things like bolden it, italicize it, capitalize it, and all that good stuff. So what we're going to do is just double click on our font, because we need it highlighted in order for this to work. And we're going to be changing this spacing size here. So I want it to be less. We'll do -50. And what that's just telling us is the space between each letter is going to be what I determine. So as I go less into the negatives, it's going to get closer and more condensed. As I go into something like 200, it'll get further away. So I'm going to be keeping this around 75, -75, and we're not going to be messing with too much. Now you can go in here and just kind of like click around. As you can see, we've got the bold one here that looks kind of cool with this font. Now you just have to be careful with the bold, because sometimes if you have really sharp edges, it tends to kind of round them out a little bit. But I'm not really getting that too much in this case. But you can just go through these and just adjust the text as you would like. But let's get into our layer style here. So I'm going to make this background here, just unlock it, and I'm going to add a quick color to it, color overlay, and we're just going to make it kind of like a dark gray, because this just helps the effect pop a little bit more. Now we're going to click on our cyber font, and we're going to start with the first part, the actual layered style itself. So we're going to double click on our layer, and it's going to open up our layer styles here. And the first thing we're going to be adding is a stroke. So we're just going to click stroke here, and we'll see that, okay, so it is just applying it as an overlay. So we're going to reset that to normal, so we get our stroke going on here. And we're going to set that to outside. Now the reason I pick outside is because we don't want it to actually be intruding on the font size itself. So I always pick outside, and we'll click opacity 100%. And we're going to be adding a color. Now the reason we're adding a color is because further on down the road, we're going to be changing that color with a hue saturation adjustment layer, which will allow us complete control over the color itself as well as its saturation. But in order to do that, we have to first pick an original color, because it will not let us essentially brighten and saturate white, because white is white. It is the most brightest and saturated of all colors. So once we have that done, we're going to be applying our next effect, which is the inner and outer glow. So first I'm going to go over the inner glow. Actually, you know what? We'll go with the outer glow first, just because this is a little bit more of a noticeable part of the effect. So with outer glow selected, we're just going to be coming up here and selecting a different color. So we went with red. We're going to keep everything inside the red sort of realm. So we're hit OK with that. And we can of course adjust the opacity just a little bit. It doesn't need to be so bright. And we're just going to start playing with some of these settings here because they will each give us a different sort of look depending on what we're going for. Now, with the effect that I went with, I like the soft one. And we'll keep the spread, just adding a little bit of spread to that, and we'll increase the size because we want quite a big glow going on here. Now for our quality, we're going to leave it on our default. We're just going to lower this just a little bit here. Bring down our size to about there. Of course, you can play with these if you would like. This one here actually creates kind of a cool effect. It's very subtle, but if you just hit OK here and zoom in, you can kind of see this cool banding effect that looks kind of interesting with this sort of style. But we're just going to swap that back. But you can kind of get different types of actual outer glows with the contour quality, and you can even double click on that and make your own graph if you would like, but the defaults are just as good. So now we're going to be adding our inner glow. So we'll add our inner glow, of course change the color again to a red, and we're just going to be, I think we're going to change this to soft and adjusting the size about there, and we're going to also adjust the opacity to something about there. Now actually, honestly, I think this effect would just look so much better. Let me just see if we changed it to this one. Put this to Cyberway Riders. Alright, yeah, honestly, it just looks so much better with this one as a font, but we're going to keep that. We're going to make that change. We're going to keep it stylistically. Okay, and I can change it back at the end if you would like. But I'm just going to also come back in here and reduce this back to 0. And okay, that looks pretty cool to me. We're also going to add another space here. Alright, so what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be accentuating this edge and then adding our kind of cool directional blur. So how do we do that? We're going to come up here to our text layer and we're going to hold Control, click on our font, and what this is actually going to do is just highlight a really nice border selection of our font. And now if with the, just hit a new layer here, so hit that little plus icon at the bottom, we're going to go to our selection tool, right click, and we're going to go to stroke. Now we're going to do 1 pixel, so keep this 1 to 2 pixels, center, and make sure your color is white. Now I say 1 to 2 pixels depending on your file size, because something like this, 1 is actually pretty good, but you can do 2 as well, and maybe you have a bigger file size and 1 just looks a little bit too thin. But now what we're going to be doing is changing this blend mode to overlay. And you can kind of already see what's going on here. It's just accentuating the edge that we got going on at the end there. Now the color in the middle, so as you can see for something over here, you can kind of see through the black a little bit. Actually, no, I didn't do it for this one. I think I reverted the change. I was going to talk to you about fill, but I reverted the change on the actual one, I guess. Which means, so if you had like a see-through, like a different color background, something like this, if you adjusted the fill, then it can't just adjust the actual black of the text layer itself. You can kind of see through it, which looks kind of cool, and you can further adjust it that way. But I clearly did not like that for whichever reason and went back to the solid black. So now I want to add the actual blur itself. So we're going to be duplicating this layer. We'll just bring that down to the bottom here. We're going to be right clicking and we're going to rasterize this layer. Now we're going to rasterize the layer as well as the layer styles. So we'll hit rasterize type and then we will hit rasterize layer styles. So just right click to access this menu. And what we're going to be doing now is adding our blur. So we'll come up to filter, blur gallery, and we're going to be adding path blur. Now the reason we add path blur is because you get these really cool taper settings as well as your set point speed, which is awesome for adding just a little bit more detail to your effect. So once you open this up, you'll notice you'll have this path here, or this arrow, and you could just grab this anchor point here and move it in any direction that you would like. You can even curve the arrow if you want to make a curved blur. For the sake of this tutorial, we'll keep it straight. And then we're just going to increase our speed, and then we're going to increase our taper. So we'll bring the taper up pretty high because that's what really gives us that nice kind of like ambient glow to our blur. And then we're going to adjust our end speed here and go to something about there, which basically just grabs the end of it and just like blurs it in a stretch formation outwards. So once that's done, you can of course play around with these in any direction you would like to kind of get the desired effect. You can even, you know, curve it if you would like. I think the curve does look kind of cool. You can get different kind of curves if you would like as well. Stuff like this, and get some interesting blurring effects going on. But for the sake of this tutorial, we'll just keep it straight. So I'm just going to, and I've got a video shadow play opening because I'm spamming my keyboard. And we'll just click there and we'll hit OK. So there you have it, pretty much our neon font. Now a couple things that I want to change that I think are just a little bit too strong is the outer glow. I think we should increase the size of that and decrease the opacity. And we'll hit OK. Now, say you want to adjust the color. You wouldn't want to go in and adjust everything here, like all these values, and make sure that the colors are all equal to what you want. So how would you do that? What we're going to do is we're going to highlight all these layers here, and we're going to drag them into our folder. So now we have a new group, call this font, and we can toggle that on and off. So we're going to now add what's called an adjustment layer. So adjustments, if you don't have this tab, it'll be under Window, Adjustments. And we're going to add a hue saturation slider, or adjustment layer, I should say. We're going to now make sure that this is clicked. We're going to hold Alt, and you'll see this, and just if you like hover your mouse over top of the two layers here, or like, between the two layers, you'll notice that you'll see this little square with an arrow, basically saying that you can convert this to a clipping mask. So if we click, you'll notice that this layer is applied to our group, which means it's only going to be affecting everything inside our group. So now on the side here, if we hit Colorize, bring up that saturation, and you can just slide that hue and essentially get any sort of color that you're looking for. So that, and honestly with that, that's pretty much the effect here. You can get any color you want. If you want to just, you can of course, you can highlight these, you can just duplicate them, Control J, bring that down here. So now we got two. It keeps thinking that I want to disable that mask, and you can of course adjust this one as well. So that's pretty much it for this quick cyber font tutorial. I hope you guys enjoyed it. This was a fun one, just creating this for my presets, and I thought I wanted to kind of share the process with you since it had a little bit more than just creating a standard layer style. But that's pretty much it, guys. Also, if you want to make this a little bit brighter, because I think this can be a little bit brighter, you can either do it one of two ways. You can either adjust the lightness, or you can actually add another adjustment, a brightness and contrast. Again, hold Alt, and we can mask that to our font here, and we can just bring up the brightness this way. Now, personally, I think that this method works a lot better than just increasing the lightness on our hue saturation layer down here. So if you want to increase the brightness of your layer, I suggest you do it this way with the actual brightness slider. And of course, you could still have the ability to change up all these values here. So just some extra corrections afterwards that are now completely interchangeable as you go through this. So maybe further down the road, you don't like the color, you can easily come back and change it accordingly. So thank you guys for watching, and don't forget to hit that bell icon. I'm going to be making more and more tutorials as time goes on, trying to bang out a few tutorials for you guys a week, so you guys will have a huge library of resources to look through and learn from. So with that said, guys, I will catch you in the next one.